1966. Over the Truong Son Mountains, the Ho Chi Minh Trail. An American O-1 bird dog observation plane circles like a hawk. The pilot, his eyes red from strain, isn't looking for trucks. He isn't looking for soldiers. He's hunting for a ghost, a thin, gray wisp of smoke. He knows that 9,000 feet below him, hidden beneath the triple canopy jungle, is an entire regiment of North Vietnamese regulars. He can't see them, but he knows they are there. And he knows they are hungry. On the jungle floor, it is a suffocating, damp green hell. For the NVA soldiers of the 308th Division, the day is a grueling march. The night is a cold, gnawing emptiness. They carry 60-pound packs. They carry rifles, ammunition, and mortars. But the heaviest burden is the one in their stomachs. They have rice, bags of it, but they cannot cook it. To light a fire is suicide. This is the absolute technological dominance of the American brute. Air power. A single column of smoke rising above the canopy is a death sentence. It is a radio call from the bird dog. It is a set of coordinates. Within 20 minutes, the sky will tear open. F-4 Phantoms will arrive with napalm. B-52s will follow, turning a square mile of jungle into a smoking lunar crater. The NVA commands know this. Every soldier knows this. So, they eat cold. They eat handfuls of dry, uncooked rice, washed down with canteen water. Or they soak the rice in water for hours, turning it into a cold, tasteless, gray mush. The effect is catastrophic. Morale evaporates. Soldiers, already weakened by the march, are crippled by diarrhea. They are malnourished. They are psychologically broken. They are not being defeated by American bombs. They are being defeated by their own empty stomachs. The paradox is absolute. To eat, you must cook. To cook, you must light a fire. To light a fire, you must die. How do you feed an invisible army? How do you cook thousands of hot meals every single day? Directly under the nose of an enemy who owns the sky. It is an impossible problem. The American commanders at MACV believe it is impossible. Their strategy is built on it. Starve the supply line, hunt the smoke. The gnat cannot survive if it cannot eat. But they are wrong, because the solution already exists. It was born not in a high-tech laboratory, but 15 years earlier, during a different war, from the mind of one single man. His name was Hoang Cam. The year is 1951, the First Indochina War. Hoang Cam is an Anh Hùng, a hero of the Viet Minh. He is not an engineer. He is not a general. He is a front-line soldier. He is fighting the French, and the French also have air power. They have Moran-Saulnier cricket observation planes. They have bombers. And his comrades are starving for the exact same reason. Hoang Cam watches his men shiver, trying to chew uncooked rice in the cold mountain air near Hoa Binh. He sees the frustration, the weakness, the blue, telltale smoke rising from a poorly hidden cooking fire, which he desperately stamps out. He understands the problem is not the fire. The fire is life. The problem is the smoke. The smoke is the betrayal. The smoke carries the heat. It carries the smell, and it rises in a single visible column. He stares at the damp earth. He watches steam rise from a boiling pot. How do you make smoke disappear? You don't. You capture it. You cool it. You diffuse it. He grabs a shovel. He begins to dig. He is not just digging a fire pit. He is digging a weapon. He is digging the solution to the impossible paradox.
Hoang Cam is not an engineer. He is a soldier driven by desperation. His first attempt is a failure. He digs a deep fire pit. He digs a long horizontal trench leading away from it. He covers it with branches and mud. He lights the fire. Within minutes, the trench collapses from the heat. The mud dries, cracks, and releases a puff of betrayal smoke. A French cricket pilot would have seen it instantly. He tries again. He needs structure. He digs the fire pit deeper this time. This is the combustion chamber. He digs a new trench, this one angled upward slightly, away from the pit. This is the flue. But this time he reinforces it. He uses scavenged bamboo split lengthwise to create a roof for the trench. He lays it over with rocks, then wet mud, then a final layer of earth and leaves for camouflage. He needs to diffuse the smoke. He doesn't have a single exit point. That would be a column. So he creates a manifold. At the end of his main 15-meter flue, he digs a T-junction, branching left and right. From those branches, he digs smaller, finger-like trenches. The smoke, now already cooling, is forced to split and split again. He lights the fire. He waits. He watches the end of his primitive exhaust system. A wisp of smoke, then nothing. A puff of steam, then it vanishes. He crawls to the end of the flue. He holds his hand over one of the finger vents hidden under a bush. The air coming out is cool. It is not hot betrayal smoke. It is cool, damp, slightly hazy air. It has no thermal signature. It has no visible column. The logic is brilliant. First, the long underground flue acts as a heat sink. The surrounding earth absorbs 90% of the fire's heat. Second, the heat sink effect cools the smoke. Hot smoke rises. Cool smoke clings to the ground. Third, the manifold system diffuses the smoke. Instead of one thick column, it is now 10 paper-thin wisps of steam exhaling from under bushes and rocks. Fourth, by the time the cool steam exits, it mixes instantly with the natural jungle humidity. It simply disappears. Hoang Cam has just invented the smokeless stove. He calls his comrades over. They do not believe him. He builds a blazing fire in the combustion pit. They stand back, terrified. He points to the end of the flue, 20 meters away. Nothing. They crawl over, they see a small wisp of steam identical to the morning mist dissipate into the leaves. A cook places a pot of rice over the fire pit. An hour later, for the first time in months, the entire company eats a hot meal. They eat and they are not bombed. They eat and they are safe. The war has changed. The Hoang Cam stove, as it is immediately named, is not just a cooking tool. It is a strategic weapon. It is a revolution in logistics. The French pilots, once so confident, are now confused. They see nothing, they hunt ghosts. The Vietnamese army, once malnourished and sick, is now strong. They are fueled by hot rice. the impossible paradox has been solved by one man with a shovel and an idea. The Hoang Cam stove is the lifeblood of the Vietnamese. It is the secret weapon that allows an invisible army to survive, to fight, and to win at the Bien Phu. But its story is not over. Its greatest test is yet to come, because 15 years later, a new enemy will arrive. An enemy with 1,000 more planes, an enemy with B-52s, an enemy with infrared scopes, an enemy that can see in the dark. The American sledgehammer is coming, and the simple, primitive Hoang Cam stove will have to evolve to fight it.
1967, Quang Tri Province. Along the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the Second Indochina War is a different kind of hell. The brute is here. The American war machine is technological, all-seeing, and unforgiving. The observation planes are now joined by something new. The RF-101 Voodoo and the RF-4C Phantom. High-speed reconnaissance jets. They don't just look, they photograph. Every inch of the trail. They carry side-looking airborne radar that can see trucks hidden under trees. But the most terrifying new weapon is not a bomb. It is a sensor. Infrared. A U.S. recon plane flying at night no longer hunts for smoke. It hunts for heat. Its infrared scopes can see a single burning cigarette from 10,000 feet. A truck engine glows like a white star. A traditional cooking fire, even a buried one, is a glowing, unmistakable beacon of death. The Hoang Cam stove, the 1951 model, is now obsolete. Its brilliance was defeating the human eye, but it cannot defeat a machine that sees heat. Balong flew, though it cooled the smoke, still radiated an enormous thermal signature into the surrounding earth. To an infrared scope, the stove looked like a glowing, 15-meter-long snake pointing directly at the NVA kitchen. The American commanders at MACV are confident. They have solved the paradox. The gnat can no longer cook. It can no longer hide. The B-52 arc light strikes begin. When a thermal signature is found, the result is biblical. A 3-ship cell of B-52s, flying too high to be seen or heard, unleashes 100 tons of high explosives. The jungle disintegrates. A mile-long box of terrain is vaporized. The NVA soldiers call it the whispering death. One moment you are walking. The next, the world ceases to exist. The malnutrition returns. The dysentery returns. The cold rice mush returns. The morale on the Ho Chi Minh Trail plummets. The high-tech sledgehammer is winning. It is pounding the primitive weapon into dust. In a camouflaged bunker, a Viet Cong engineer, a man who had served with Hong Kong himself, stares at the problem. He is not a PhD from MIT. He is a logistics officer. He knows his regiment will cease to exist if they cannot eat hot food. The original stove solved smoke. He must now solve heat. How do you hide heat from a machine that eats it? You can't stop it. You can't destroy it.
So, you must do the same thing Hoang Cam did to the smoke. You must capture it. You must cool it. You must diffuse it. But this time, a simple trench won't work. The earth itself is the betrayer. He needs an insulator, something that doesn't exist in the jungle. He looks at the rushing river nearby. Water. Water is the good heat sink on earth. He gives a new order. Stop digging in the jungle. Start digging by the stream. The Hong Kong stove is about to evolve.
The NVA and Viet Cong engineers, those gnats of the jungle, begin their impossible adaptation. They cannot fight the infrared sensor, so they decide to make it blind. They realize the problem is not the fire. The problem is the heat radiating out horizontally into the soil. Their solution is as brilliant as it is primitive: insulation. First, the new Hoang Cam stove is dug deeper, much deeper, often 2 or 3 meters down into the cold, wet subsoil that never sees the sun. Second, the flue system is no longer a simple bamboo-lined trench. It is now a complex, multi-layered heat exchanger. The engineers build a trench within a trench. An inner pipe made of scavenged steel or thick, mud-packed bamboo carries the hot smoke. But this pipe is not buried in dirt. It is suspended in the middle of a larger waterproofed trench, and that outer trench is filled with running water. They dig the stove system parallel to a jungle stream. They divert a small channel of water to flow through this outer trench, constantly surrounding the hot exhaust pipe. The cold, running water acts as a perfect heat sink. It absorbs 100% of the thermal radiation. It eats the heat. The water, now slightly warmed, flows harmlessly back into the main stream, its minuscule heat signature vanishing instantly in the millions of gallons of moving water. The earth around the stove no longer glows. It remains as cold as the surrounding jungle. But they don't stop there. They are now paranoid. They tackled the fire pit itself. The cook no longer stands over an open pit. The pit is now a tiny, insulated bunker, covered by multiple layers of wet earth, steel plates from dud bombs, and more waterproof sheeting. A small hole allows the cook to feed in wood. Another hole is just big enough for a massive rice pot to be seated, its bottom deep in the combustion chamber. The smoke that finally emerges from the end of this new, water-cooled, 30-meter-long flue is no longer warm. It is stone-cold. It is just a faint, damp, odorless mist that is indistinguishable from the natural fog of the Turyeongsan Mountains. The American recon pilots are now baffled. They fly their infrared missions. Their scopes are pristine. They see nothing. The jungle is thermally clean. It is a cold, green desert. The pilots report the trail is empty. The B-52s have nothing to target. And 9,000 feet below them, in that cold, green desert, an entire regiment of 3,000 NVA soldiers is sitting down in shifts to eat a steaming, hot meal of rice and salt. They are cooking tons of food, 24 hours a day. They are doing it directly underneath the most advanced thermal detection system in the world. The high-tech sledgehammer is swinging at ghosts. It is being defeated by an enemy who has weaponized dirt, bamboo, and river water. The Hoang Cam 2.0 is a masterpiece of necessity. It is not just a stove, It is a thermal cloaking device, a 19th century stealth technology. The impossible has been solved twice.
The Hoang Cam stove, in its water-cooled form, now proliferates. It is not just one stove. It becomes a doctrine. Every bin tram, every logistical way station on the Ho Chi Minh Trail, every frontline regiment has a team of engineers whose only job is to build and maintain these invisible kitchens. The scale of this operation is staggering, almost unbelievable. A single NVA regiment of 3,000 men requires over 4 tons of rice per day. To cook this, the engineer battalion doesn't build one stove. They build a kitchen complex. They build a dozen Hoang Cam stoves in parallel, all buried by the same riverbank. A squad of soldiers is assigned to each one. They are no longer infantry, they are full-time cooks, experts in thermal and smoke discipline. They use specialized fuel, dry, hard wood that burns hot with minimal soot. They become masters of camouflage, replacing the leaves over the flue vents every day so they don't wilt and change color. The kitchen itself becomes a fortress. It is the heart of the regiment. It is defended more heavily than the command bunker. If the kitchen is hit, the regiment dies. The American high-tech sledgehammer is now completely, utterly blind, and it is paralyzed. The arc light missions slow down. Why waste $1 million bomb load on a cold, empty jungle? The infrared recon reports come back night after night. Negative thermal, negative activity. And in the middle of this reported empty quarter, the Viet Cong are preparing an offensive. The ultimate proof of the stove's success is not just survival. It is the build-up for the Tet Offensive. Tens of thousands of soldiers are moving into position, hiding in staging areas just miles from American bases. They are not starving. They are not sick. They are eating hot food every day, cooked by an invisible army of cooks in stealth kitchens. The Hoang Cam stove is no longer a defensive tool. It has become an offensive weapon. It is the engine that is fueling the entire Southern insurgency. The humiliation for the American brute is not that it is being outfought. It is that it is being outsmarted. It is being fooled by a trick that relies on the laws of physics, a trick that uses mud, water, and bamboo. American prisoners of war would later report their absolute disbelief. They would be held in a jungle camp, hearing B-52s carpet-bombing the ridge a mile away, all while eating a hot meal of rice that had been cooked by their captors in a smokeless, heatless stove. The evidence was right in front of them, and it was impossible to comprehend. The enemy was primitive, but they were not stupid. In fact, in this one critical battle, the battle of logistics, of survival, they were geniuses. The gnat was not just surviving the sledgehammer. It was thriving. It was growing stronger. It was feasting, undetected, in the shadow
of the giant.
The Hoang Cam stove is not just a piece of history. It is the core emotion of this entire conflict. It is the payoff of the impossible paradox. It is the answer to the why. Ingenuity born from necessity. The American brute was a sledgehammer, a high-tech, billion-dollar war machine. It was built to fight a visible, technological war. It brought B-52s, infrared scopes, and computers. It was prepared to fight an enemy it could see. The Vietnamese not refused to fight that war. They had no B-52s. They had no infrared scopes. They had mud, bamboo, river water, and desperation. And from that necessity, they produced an invention of pure genius. This is the great reversal. The Americans had an army of engineers from MIT and Caltech designing better bombs. The Vietnamese had one soldier, Hoang Cam, and his anonymous successors, designing a better kitchen. And in the jungle, the better kitchen was the deadlier weapon. The Hoang Cam stove did not just cook rice. It defeated the entire American air reconnaissance strategy. It defeated the B-52 arc light program. It defeated the infrared sensor. It defeated the psychological warfare of starvation. It was a small, brilliant invention that changed the entire nature of the war. It allowed an army of ghosts to remain ghosts. It allowed them to march thousands of miles, to live undetected, and to arrive on the doorstep of Saigon well-fed and ready to fight. The realization is humiliating for the brute. Your billion-dollar spy plane was made blind by a ditch filled with river water. Your thermal imagers were fooled by mud. Your entire strategy of technological dominance was neutralized by a single clever idea. The Hoang Cam stove is the ultimate proof. In a war of asymmetric ideas, the sledgehammer will always lose to the gnat, because the gnat is not fighting with muscle. It is fighting with its mind.